maybe would have somehow found my way to it without Booktube, but I don't know, guys, I might not have. That was dumb. Challenge you. Challenge you, challenge you. It's not a ghost story, but it just sounds... No. No. Hi everyone, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. And for all of you who are new here today, welcome to the channel. I was planning to do a 500 subscribers video, and thanks in most all part to Krista from Books and Jams and April from Getting Hugo with It. At the time I'm filming this video, I'm like just over 600. So this is like a 600 subscriber video, which yes is really weird, but whatever. It's just sort of how things roll here. But Krista had included me in a shout out video that she did, which I had mentioned in a previous video that I did, which kind of kicked me over the 500 mark. So I started plotting like, I wanted to celebrate 500 people, because when I started filming videos in the end of November, like I didn't even know if 5 people were gonna watch them. And I started a channel because I wanted to talk about books. I wanted to connect with people who love books. And this has exceeded all expectations. And kind of while I was plotting out my 500 book video, or 500 subscriber video, April from Getting Hugo with It included me in one of her videos as a new booktuber to watch. And I have since had a whole bunch more people subscribe to my channel. So thank you again to Krista, huge thank you to April, thank you to everyone who found me through either one of these ladies' channels or who organically found me. Thank you and welcome. And yeah, we're gonna do a 600 subscriber celebration video. And I wanted to talk about really kind of like a booktube made me do it. So thinking about the books that I've been reading lately, and since I really kind of started lurking in the background of booktube and watching videos, there are definitely a bunch of books that I never would have picked up had I not heard about it through booktube or sort of was convinced by people whose opinions I trust and whose reviews I trust to give some books a go. So I thought, what better way to celebrate booktube than talk about how booktube has influenced my reading, and then we're also going to do a little bit of a giveaway. So I had also had a giveaway plan, which I have since tweaked because again, why not? So there's 2 giveaways, which I'll talk about at the end. One is a physical book, so that's going to have to be US only because we all know that shipping books around is really kind of challenging. So 1 US subscriber one, and then one that is open to everyone, which is a gift card, so everyone's welcome to that. But all that good stuff will be at the end. So let's kick off the video talking about books that I picked up just because of all of you. So to be clear, this is not an all-inclusive list of books I picked up because of Booktube, but I just wanted to highlight a smattering of them. And these are all books that I've talked about before, so I'm not going to go into like my typical crazy detail on them. They are referenced in past videos, which I'll link those down below. And also I have reviews on Goodreads, which are spoiler free. So if you want to read a little bit more about what I think about the books, you can check all of that out. But the first one, and this came from a whole bunch of people, is Eleanor Olaffonte's Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And this is 100% a book I never would have picked up had I not kept hearing about it on Booktube, and then again hearing people just rave about it so much. And I'm so happy I picked it up. And it's just this beautiful story of Eleanor and this relationship that she has and with Raymond, who was her coworker. And it completely moved me. And it's a story about, you know, loneliness and people reaching out and building friendships and sort of, like I say, acts of kindness, and just sort of how your world can change if you open yourself up to it a little bit, and by one person just sort of showing you that amount, that sort of ounce of gratitude. And I had mentioned in my review, this did get off to a slow start for me, but sort of once I got maybe like 80 or so pages in, I like ripped through it, loved it, I cried, it warmed my heart, all the feels. Couldn't recommend this book higher, loved it. The next book is one I just finished and I picked up 100% because of Julie at Pages and Pens, and that is This Adventure Ends by Emma Mills. And this is YA contemporary, and I've said this before, that is typically not what I read, so it doesn't really cross my path, and I don't really dive deep into looking for YA books, but there's sort of this small group of YA books that don't make me feel as old as I am, that I can relate to and I can understand and I can just appreciate for everything that it is. And this is absolutely one of those books. And I'm so grateful that Julie mentioned it during, I want to say it was during like the Contemporary-a-thon, like drunk live show wrap up. And she talks about it like even on her channel and her Bookstagram. You know, this is one of her favorite books and she recommends it to everybody. And it's this beautiful story of, I keep saying everything's so beautiful, but I'm just like, it's just the way I look at these. This girl named Sloane, and she is a senior in high school. Her and her family have relocated to Florida. The book opens kind of 3 weeks into her being in the new school. And it is sort of as much a story about her sort of finding her tribe of friends and this group who are, they've been friends sort of their entire life, and they have this very complicated backstory and history, and it's a brother and sister who are twins, and then a few other folks, and it's sort of Sloane who's used to being the loner and kind of like doesn't need to fit in and doesn't really care what people think of her and says what she says and does what she does and has real comfort and confidence in herself. And it's how this group of friends embrace her and want to be her friend. And she's not even sure kind of what it is to be a good friend because she's never really had that, like those kinds of friendships. So it's a very interesting story in that there's no like girl hate, there's no jealousy, there's no like ridiculous love triangles, there's no people like elbowing each other out of the way for people's attention. I thought it was very interesting. There's also like no, like it's not about like hair and makeup and clothes and like all of this stuff. It is purely about these relationships, which I feel like is so unique to find, because I feel like whether it's books or TV and YA or adult, there's sort of like a lot of times there's like this Mean Girls vibe to things, and there's none of that in here. And kind of on top of that, it's as much about sort of her relationship with her friends and how this friendship grows and sort of the adventure that Sloane goes on. But it's also a huge part about her relationship with her dad. And her dad he's a writer, and he's in a place where he's really struggling with his writing and sort of his place. And I wrote this in my review. This is the best father-daughter relationship I have seen since Keith and Veronica Mars. This is not a mystery book in any way, but their banter and their respect for one another and their connection and their honesty and all of it is just such a beautiful father-daughter relationship. And you know, her mom's there and she has a little sister and the family is active and the adults and the parents are there. And it was just one of these books where I didn't know what to think of it or like kind of what to expect coming into it. And it really surprised me on all the best levels, and I really loved it. So I have to echo Julie's feelings. If you have not picked this book up, absolutely check it out. It's just really, I needed a warm and fuzzy book after something else I read, which was very dark and stormy. And this was absolutely it, and I can't wait because I will 100% read this one again. Another book in the I can't believe I almost missed this category that everyone raves about, rightfully so, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I just read this last month. I talked about it a ton in my monthly wrap up. And I have to say, like, when I was editing that video, I realized like also how much I didn't say about this book, because this is another book that just shook me to the core, and it made me laugh, and it made me feel wonderful, and it made me sad, and it made me cry. You know, it made me cry in a happy way, and it made me cry in a sad way. But it is so beautifully written. I am 100% obsessed with Taylor Jenkins Reid. The woman blows my mind. Her writing, her storytelling, her characters, how it's just literally so beautifully woven together is amazing. I have intense hero worship for her. And this is a book, kind of in a nutshell, about Evelyn, who was a huge star in Hollywood in kind of 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, sort of dropped out of the business, and sort of the world hasn't seen much of her lately. And now she's in, I want to say like her mid-late 80s, mid-80s maybe, and she's kind of finally ready to tell her story. So she hires this very unlikely journalist to do it, and sort of everyone is surprised why she picked this person, including Monique herself, who is the journalist. And Evelyn tells her story. And she is sort of this Liz Taylor, kind of Rita Hayworth combo in a lot of ways. And she tells the story through her husbands and through the loves of her life, and sort of a very unlikely love of her life. And it is a behind the curtain look at Hollywood. It feels completely authentic. Evelyn feels as real as Elizabeth Taylor and Rita Hayworth and Grace Kelly and kind of any other actress you can think of from the, you know, from the times. And it's such a beautiful look inside her life and her struggles and her family and her loves and her friendships. And she is this woman who was just going to make it no matter what. And she does things that are unlikable at times, but like I challenge you to not love her. And she was relentless in being successful and being a star. And she did whatever it took. And she made a lot of sacrifices. She made a lot of choices. It's just so beautiful. There is wonderful LGBT representation in this. It touches on so many important subject matters and so much historical that was going on. And it's really just, it's just absolutely amazing. If you were me and you didn't pick up this book or had any hesitation about this, push it all aside, get it from your library, get it from wherever, read it, listen to it, whatever you need to do. You will not be sorry. A thriller that completely took me by total surprise is The One by John Marrs. And Lisa from Books and Smiles talked about this in her 2018 Best of Thriller video. And I want to say that's what it was called. I immediately hopped on my iPad, hopped on my library apps, found it, borrowed it, read it. Stopped what I was doing. She was like, I dare you to pick this book up and be able to put it down. She couldn't have been more right. I devoured this book. And I am now a John Marrs fan, who is someone I hadn't heard of before. And this is a book that does sort of, it's like thriller-ish, sci-fi-ish. It does sort of this completely scary yet amazing take on online dating. And this takes place in the future, where online dating has gone to a whole new level, where they don't just match you by things you're interested in and where you live. They match you by your DNA. And there is a DNA match out there for you who is your ultimate soulmate, and this is a love like you will never know with anyone else. So people are submitting their DNA, and when their match, submits his or her DNA, you get a letter about it, and it is breaking up marriages. It is causing so much turmoil for people. And you also have people who are just waiting for their match to show up because people have submitted their DNA and their match hasn't happened yet. And it's told from the perspective of 5 different people. So you have, again, this whole scientific piece of it. And this is not a spoiler because you find this out you get these alternating perspectives. You see all 5 people and it keeps changing, and each chapter is 4 pages long, but it's part of the book jackety thing. What if your match is a serial killer and one of them is? So you've got that whole thing going on too. It is crazy, you guys. I cannot wait. This apparently is going to be like a Netflix miniseries. I can't wait to read more John Marrs, but this book was just insane. It completely grabbed me by the throat and just pulled me along for the ride. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Next up, I have Sadie by Courtney Summers, and this is one that I listened to on audiobook, which is something that everybody talked about. So everyone was sort of talking about the book, but it was kind of but if you do it, do the audiobook. And something else that Booktube did for me is introduce me to audiobooks, because I had never listened to them before. And I talked about this, all the judgments about it, that listening wasn't the same as reading and blah, 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 blah. And here I am once again saying I was wrong, because you can have a beautiful experience listening to a book. You can have a different appreciation for a book by listening to it. And while not every audiobook is great, because I did listen to a dud of one where I didn't love the narrator, this one was insane. So Sadie is a story. It's a YA, which also was sort of put me in that, again, making judgments, pause moment. Didn't feel YA to me in any way, in the sense, and when I say it doesn't feel YA to me, I mean it doesn't make me feel like I'm 100 like I am. So that's my category for it doesn't feel like YA. And Sadie is I want to say she's 19 years old, and her sister has been murdered, and she is on the quest to find the killer. So this story is 2 parts, where you have Sadie literally on a revenge trip in the car out to find the person who killed her sister, because even though we don't know, she knows who it is. And then you have a podcaster who does these kind of human interest, small town America type of podcasts. And this has been brought to his attention, and he decides to follow this case sort of at the request of Sadie's grandmother. And he is following in her footsteps kind of, I want to say it's 3 months later. So Sadie's car has been found, but she hasn't, and he starts retracing her steps. So you see something happen through Sadie's eyes, and then you see him sort of going where she had been. And what's beautiful about the audiobook is it's a full cast of characters. So you have different voices, different perspectives. You're hearing everything as if it were a real podcast. And I had said this in my other review too, so apologies if people have watched that and I sound repetitive here. But from like the podcast, like there's commercials in it. It sounds completely authentic. And he's interviewing people in the diner and you hear like the plates clattering and the chairs moving and the bell ringing, and he's out on the street talking to people and you hear birds chirping and cars going by. And I believe you can listen to the podcast part, maybe on Courtney Summers' website or maybe on the publisher's site. I'll try and find out which and let you know down below. All in, I really enjoyed the story and the mystery, but I hands down do the audiobook. I went on a super long waiting list and it was completely worth the wait. And the last book, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm like a little bit more than halfway through it, but I just wanted to talk about it quickly. And it's Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. And Melanie from Mel to the Any recommended this. Immediately loved the story of it, looked it up, paused the video, threw it in my Amazon cart, got it. And I'm loving it. And again, here we are again in YA, which is not something I would have picked up. Not a story I ever probably would have heard about on my own. And I hesitate to say, because again, I'm a little bit more than halfway through it, but if the second part of this book is as great as the first part, I'm loving it. I'm loving the story. I'm loving Mina, who's our main character. This is about some girls in this private school called Innovation Academy, and they are sort of being groomed to be perfect and compliant and sort of be the best girls they can be. And something happens that makes Mina question for the first time in her life, why are we here? Is this normal? Is this okay? Something doesn't quite feel right. So that's all I've got on this one, but so far, amazing. And of course, I have a few books that I haven't read yet that are on my insanely long list of recommendations from other booktubers. But I also just wanted to highlight a few because they're top my list at this stage of the game, and I'm really excited to read them. And the first one is Jane Steele, which was recommended by Leanne at Literary Diversions, and it is by Lindsay Fay. And this is a Jane Eyre retelling. And I'll be perfectly honest, like I'm not someone who loves classics. I'm not uber familiar with Jane Eyre. I read it in college. I remember reading it, but like I'm not someone who's like obsessed with the classics and is obsessed with the retellings of them. But what I love about this one is Jane's kind of a killer in this one. So she apparently, I just like read the blurb part of it, is kind of like tormented by all the same people, and she kills them and leaves bodies in her wake and is sort of on the run. So I don't know where this story goes. I am completely intrigued. I had mentioned last month in my wrap up, there was a video or a book that I read about a sociopath. The book was Jane Doe, and I was like so in for like darkness, and I wanted it to go there, and I wanted it to be like all those bad dark things, and it wasn't. And I'm craving darkness. So Jane Steele sounds super dark. It sounds like it goes there. My library has it, so I'm 100% going to be reading it. Another book that screams darkness that I cannot wait to read, which is why I bought it immediately, is Sweet Pea by CJ, I want to say Scuzzi? Sorry if that's really wrong. I heard about this from Shelby Taggart Reads, and Shelby actually found me through April's recommendation. I immediately hopped over to her channel, watched one of her most recent hauls. This was in it. She couldn't rave about it enough. And then I subsequently actually saw it on Leanne's channel also, but it was already in the mail at that point. So I felt like doubly justified in getting this book. But this is another one. So I'm going down the path of women who kill, but you know me, I do like a thriller. So this is about a girl named Rhiannon. She's your average girl next door. She's got a boyfriend, she's got a dog, she's got a job, and she's got a secret. And she makes what she calls a kill list. And she fantasizes about, you know, killing the guy who bags her groceries and messes up her apples, and killing the person who cuts her off in, you know, traffic, and killing her boss because he's kind of a jerk. So she has this fantasy kill list, and it sounds like it goes from fantasy to reality. And it says, because the girl everyone overlooks might just be able to get away with murder. Can't wait There's also a sequel that's already out. It's like less than $6 on Book Depository. So I might even just do that thing, which I'm trying not to do, and buy the sequel before I've read the first one, because that's like a total bargain. But cannot wait to read this. Now, another book that I've heard of, lest you think I'm like completely living under a rock, but have had no real urge to pick up until I joined Booktube, and that's Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And this is a book that I've heard about it from April. I've heard about it from Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand. It definitely like pops up on people's lists as like a great sort of thriller recommendation, and atmospheric and sort of creep vibes and all of this. And I've heard about it during different mystery thriller conferences I've gone to. It's definitely a book that like always sort of comes up on people's lists, but I've just never, obviously, picked it up. But I'm going to finally do it. And this is one of the books I almost got in my library book sale. It was $1, but the cover was like so grubby and icky. I just couldn't bring myself to do it even for $1. So I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna read it, library book, Libby, wherever I can find it. But I'm excited to read it. Another author that I have come across, but again, walked right past, is Kate Morton. And I will admit, like, The Clockmaker's Daughter caught my eye because the cover of that book is stunning. And it's sort of historical fiction, which is not really a land I live in, but there is an element of mystery to it, which intrigues me. But historical fiction as a whole kind of scared me, so I just sort of stayed away from her. But she keeps coming up over and over again, and I think I'm going to give it a go. But I'm going to start at the beginning with The House at Riverton. And I've heard so many great reviews on this. I've heard so many great recommendations about it. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the Goodreads review is, but I know it's like over 4 stars, super strong. It was her debut book. It won a ton of awards when it came out. I think maybe like in 2007-ish, maybe I think it's like 10 years old, 10 or 11 years. So I have made it my mission to try Kate Morton because everyone talks about her so tremendously. And much like the other books I talked about, where I do feel I'm having FOMO, and I think I might just be really doing myself a disservice by not giving her a go. Okay, so now you've heard all about what Booktube made me do and what Booktube is going to make me do, and now I want to thank all of you guys for being here and for watching my videos and subscribing and engaging and leaving comments and giving me recommendations. I literally could do a video on every recommendation I've had in the past 6 months, and we'd be here for 6 more months. So let's talk about the giveaway. So the first giveaway is going to be the US subscribers only, because it's a physical book, and it's Her Every Fear by Peter Swanson. And if you've been following my channel, which presumably you have, and that's why you're here, you know I love Peter Swanson. And I read The Kind Worth Killing before I started Booktube, but I have talked about that one also ad nauseum since I started making videos. And I love him. It's thrillers, it's twisted, it's varying perspectives, it's like all the tropes I love. They're set partially, if not all, in Boston, which I love. And the reason I picked this one was A, it was available, so I could get it easily on Book Outlet, and B, not a spoiler, there is someone who dies kind of before the book starts, and her name is Audrey, so it felt appropriate. Even though I don't like being the dead one, my name is in it, and I used to live in Boston. I love it. So this is a story about 2 cousins, Kate and Corbin, and they have never met, even though they're both kind of, I think they're like maybe like late 20s, and Corbin is transferring with his company to London, which is where Kate lives. Kate's had some stuff and kind of needs an excuse to get out of town, so they agree to swap apartments for 6 months. And Kate gets to Boston, and that's when Corbin's neighbor, Audrey, is found dead. And all sorts of questions abound, you know, who killed her? Why? Did Corbin possibly have anything to do with it? What is the backstory? What's the history? And then poor sweet Kate has got so much baggage. And not that anybody wants to live in an apartment where the person next door is found dead, but when you've got some trauma of your own on top of it, it just brings out all of it. So, loved this book. Loved it. Hopefully someone else will too. And if you're worried that I'm giving away my copy, I'm not. This is the one I'm giving away. It's got the Book Outlet thing. It unfortunately has a little bit of a ding from shipping, which makes me bananas. But this is my copy. And to prove it, for all you people so you know I read it, people who freak out about this stuff, I wrote in it. This one's mine. So you're getting your own untouched new copy of it. And then for everybody, I wanted to do a Book Depository gift card. And like, you can't really send gift cards, so I'm gonna do a $20. You can, you know, as long as Book Depository ships to where you live, you can buy as few or as many books as you want, like up to that $20 mark. So a $20 order, and I will order it for you and send it to you. So in the case of both of these giveaways, you have to be totally cool with giving me your home address. I promise to keep it confidential, so I can send you your books. In the case of Book Depository, you need to live somewhere where Book Depository does ship to you. They ship to basically everywhere, I feel like. And then, you know, we'll sort out all the details. So in order to be entered, you need to be a subscriber. Please don't subscribe just to unsubscribe, because that's not fun. And leave a comment down below and tell me at least a book that Booktube has made you do. So a book that you never would have picked up if not for Booktube. It doesn't have to be anything that I've talked about, just any book, why you picked it up, what have you. And if you're a US person and you want to win the book, the Peter Swanson book, make sure you note that down below also. This sounds like a lot of stuff. I'll include it in the little box down below too. But that is my plan. I'm going to keep this open till May 31, and then we'll do like that random number generator, name generator, whatever, pick some winners, get in touch with people, and yeah, everybody wins. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. I am loving this. I am so glad I took the leap of faith and decided to do a Booktube channel. I was scared to death to do it. I'm having such a fun time, and I'm just so grateful to be connecting with people, talking about books, discovering books. It's my everything. So thank you guys. I will see you really soon, and bye.